Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Folari. Hope you had a great weekend. Okay, today let's look at the ongoing United Nations conference on climate change. Actually, in Nigeria, that particular conference, abbreviated to COP28, has been in the news for, for the kind of, not for any of the reasons why they are gathered together, but all of that seems to have been sorted now in that there's this whole matter about a ginormous number of representatives for Nigeria. But the latest that we've heard is that it was mistaken to view those as a Nigerian-sponsored attendance, that not everybody that is registered, so many people, will register, whether government, whether, NGO, whether, so many people will register, and they will all register under the country of their origin. Indeed, some will register but will not even be present physically, we have since learned, because there was a scare that what was Nigeria doing with all of those numbers? But that's just to the side. The much more important business is that it's a conference to address the question of global warming. And we have regular experts, Mr. Desmond Majekodunmi, environmentalist and chair of the Lekki State Urban Forest and Animal Shelter Initiative. A fine morning to you, Mr. Majekodunmi.
Good morning to you too. But why were they complaining that we sent? I mean, is Nigeria not the giant of Africa? We're supposed to send a giant delegation.
Yeah, but people started to compare that. Look at China. Look at the GDP of China. Look at Nigeria. Look at its GDP. And how was Nigeria matching the same number of, delegates, so to speak, as China? That, come on, weren't we, we were being wasteful here until that explanation came through that government was not necessarily sponsoring everybody that was there, but that whoever registers, your country of origin, be it an NGO, be it government, of course, will have its own people. So that, I think that had to come out of the presidency this morning, because the hue and cry was really much.
Said they wanted to do no,
exactly.
I know some people, when they sponsored the Nigerian Conservation Foundation, they certainly didn't go there for a party. They went there to look after the planet, to see what they can do to make nature healthy.
Indeed, and in fact, so much so that the spokesman from the presidency had to use that very word, jamboree, that they were not, Nigerians were not there for a jamboree, as people had sort of conjectured. Indeed, opposition politicians were quite alarmed and had expressed the alarm. I don't know if they'll be feeling better now that the explanation has come through, that the fact that we happen to numerically match the same number of delegates as China does not mean that we were flexing in that kind of way. And government has given the indication that for all practical purposes, no, we probably don't have that number of people in there. But as I said, coming on to the main business, it's a conference to see how to address global warming and climate change. Now, one of the interesting aspects of that whole conference, which is being headed by, a Saudi businessman, engineer, and politician, Sultan Al-Jaber, it's been seen as controversial in the sense that he is the he's the chair of the Abu Dhabi National Oil Corporation. And Sultan Jaber has been seen as, wait a minute, you are chair of the oil corporation. All of this problem is coming from fossil fuels. How come you make that kind of a person the head of this conference? So there's been that ongoing debate. Many have called for his removal, but UK, for instance, is not among those people who have said that he's an excellent chap. And indeed, he did, on the very first day of the conference, gain widespread applause when he pointed out that, look, the very problem of global warming and climate change seems to stem from fossil fuels. He thought it was fitting to have someone from inside the problem so that it could be changed from inside, as opposed to people from outside, professing changes. I don't know if you had an opinion on that whole scene generally before we look at what would Nigeria be seeking to gain from attendance and what would be Nigeria's input.
That's a very deep insight, and it's a very, very interesting situation, because as I say, it takes a thief to catch a thief. And and the reality is that this man too will be affected. He has children, maybe even already has grandchildren. And the reality is that the future of our children is at risk, at serious, serious risk. Not just because, okay, the atmosphere is getting bad and there will be maybe a lot more people getting sick or whatever. No. Because we have now pushed it very close to a tipping point. That is the amount of greenhouse gases that are there, and most of those greenhouse gases come from burning the fossil fuel. We're pushing it very close to a tipping point, whereby if we continue with this rate of emission, we will not be able to stop the process of the global warming, and it will turn catastrophic in a few decades. Indeed. That is the most worrying part of it. And it affects all of us, affects all of our children and our grandchildren. So it is probably a good thing to have somebody who is, right on top of the industry that is the major cause of this problem.
Yes.
To be there. Yeah, I endorse it. Because he must love his own children. Is he going to put? Yeah, is he going to put profits ahead of the livelihood of his own children? I doubt it.
Even though why people were worried about him was that, look, Abu Dhabi, and the, Arabia generally, they have this situation where oil is a key, source of their income. And so how sincere would they be? But as I said, the Sultan's view is that fossil fuels, and quoting directly now, are at the heart of the climate crisis. So it makes sense to persuade that industry to change from the inside. I suppose the operative word there is persuade. Because, so I can see that they're going to have to be managing, it's like a delicate scale and balance. But he's in there. The man is he's a politician, he's a lawyer, he's an engineer, and he's committed. And as I said, he did get wide applause on the first day of the conference when he secured that agreement, just as you have agreed now that, guys, some people calling for my removal. It makes a lot of sense to have an insider heading this whole thing and persuading those insiders to see the sense, the truth, the veracity of what you're saying, and work, as it were, on behalf of the world from inside the fossil fuel industry. But having said that, I don't know, fossil fuel is not letting up. Oh yes, we have the Enoch Musks of this world that by now have, in America today, if you can afford it, and that's one of the questions, it's prohibitively high at the moment. If you can afford it, your whole house, that is simply not putting these corrugated iron sheets on your house, simply putting solar panels on your house instead, special solar panels, then you can actually be running your house, indeed your factory, from the sun, so to speak. Cars these days, everybody is researching on, battery-powered cars. Electric, in short. When we say battery, we're really talking about electric. So I don't know. Do you think Nigeria is in a place to be able to make any difference, considering our, trajectory of development and where we are at the moment?
Yes. The irony is that, not just Nigeria, but Africa generally is a pretty small contributor to the problem.
Yes.
Although we're rapidly growing. We're rapidly growing to become a more major contributor to the problem. And the fact that the problem is so urgent and needs to be addressed very, very urgently, that we in Nigeria we have no choice, just like even the Saudis and so on, to become more part of the solution than to continue to be part of the problem. Because of the urgency of the problem and the severity of the problem. That's what we need to get through our consciousness. This thing is dealing with the Earth's very life support systems. This miraculous planet, this planet out of millions, that is the only one that can support life because of the various systems it has, including the atmospheric gas systems, which ensure that we retain just a certain amount of heat and do not go over hot. You know, if your body, the Earth is like a giant body. If your body goes just a few degrees above its normal temperature, you know you're sick. And we cannot afford to make our planet, which is our life support system, sick. So yes, it is a challenge to all of us, but we just have to grit our teeth and do it. But the good thing is, see, Nigeria is a blessed country. Yeah? Not only do we have all those fossil fuel resources, we have so many other resources. You know, you were referring to earlier about, the sunlight. We have more sunlight, more sun hours
being in the
most other
tropics.
countries do. Mm-hmm. Oh, it's all there. And now the technology is not just taking the light itself to produce electricity, they're also taking sun heat with the parabolic mirror reflectors and so on to produce electricity. Is it heat in the northern areas? We have so much of that. We have wave energy, constant wave energy along our coastline. Even our streams and rivers, they can produce electricity with their motion. We have wind, so much wind. So, you know, we have so much potential just for producing the electricity without having to burn this toxic substance.
Indeed.
And, you know, the reality is toxic. My brother, if I bring the generator into that room, will you allow me to spark the generator?
the generators that we depend on here, and the emissions, from all those generators, that's a big part of the problem.
Yeah, but if I bring it into your studio, you won't allow me to turn it on. You won't stay in the room. It's a poison. So we got to face that reality. It's a poisonous substance, and we got to stop using it.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Majekodunmi, that's a very delicate point you've arrived at there, because again, I go back to our trajectory at the moment where we are at. The public power supply is it's a work in progress. In the meantime, people, just to use the whole matter of the generation of electricity, people have to generate their own, you know, and so generators come into it, not just industry and then, you know, on the private sector. And it's the emissions. First of all, it's the fuel that you're going to need, and then having got the fuel in, that one caused its own problems in getting the fuel. Now that you're actually running it, it's simplistic to say that it is now the emission into the atmosphere is not doing the atmosphere any good. So it's like a double whammy. But it seems that, and that's why it'll be interesting to hear what our delegates, what their contribution is going to be at that particular conference. It'll be quite interesting because you've spoken about alternatives, but it's about the emissions, it's about, and you also pointed out earlier that it's our own contribution to this problem is microscopic compared to, you know, the West. They are the people flying all the planes around. We too, we don't mind flying. But I don't know whether they're going to come up with electric planes and all of that kind of a thing, where we generally, I suppose the objective will be a zero emission of these toxic fuels that are coming, the toxic emissions that are coming from fossil fuels that we're using.
Yeah, it has to be. We just have to go. You know, in the past they could use ignorance. Now we're no longer ignorant. Everybody knows that it's too toxic, and we can't continue. But we have, again, we're so blessed in Nigeria, you know, because the transition through that a lot of people are looking at is the natural gas, and we have abundance of natural gas. It has to be deployed judiciously, because if it leaks, it gives off far more greenhouse effects than the carbon dioxide that comes from burning the fossil fuel. So yeah, that's a transition for us, and I see there's a lot of talk about that. Mr. President has been saying himself that he wants to ensure that we go into public sector transport that is driven by gas, which is it's a healthy and a very positive, good development, and it should be a lot cheaper to supply as well. So as a transition fuel, we could, persuade ourselves, well, maybe we could do that. But in terms of, burning the petrol and the diesel, there has to be a strict limitation on the time frame for that. We cannot continue to be part of the problem. We have to be part of the real solution,
Indeed.
which is to ensure that we don't have this toxicity in the atmosphere.
Because ultimately, it's all about planet Earth and doing our best to leave it, at least if we can't leave it in a better position than we met it, we should be very conscious of our footprint so as not to leave it in a much more devastated condition than we met it. And I suppose in that regard is why, is what your organization, the Lekki State Urban Forests and Animal Shelter Initiative, because the animal, the fauna, all of that is part of Earth. And it has to be protected, it has to be regenerated. Animals are going extinct. That's just a short throw away from, God forbid, humans too becoming extinct when this planet cannot sustain us anymore.
Oh, that's it. That's the reality. And what we do there, the Lekki Urban Forest System, we have a lot of the young people coming. And, they love it. As soon as they're here with the nature and the fresh air, and then they see some squirrels and monkeys jumping around, they love it. And then what we tell them is that, look, my dear people, we have to look after this because it's looking after us, And we ask them, we say, okay, do you love your mother? You love your mama? They say, yes. I say, would you try slapping your mama? They say, no. Hey, slap our mama. We say, don't try that too. Especially African mama, don't try it. So we now tell them, hey. So Mother Nature now is the overall mother of everybody. She gives us everything that we need for our survival. But what we're doing is we're slapping her. And that's why she is also beginning to warn us that she will slap us back. Stop your nonsense. And they pick up on that. And then we tell them, okay, can you hold your breath for 10 minutes? They say, no, it's not possible. Yeah, why? Because so that's how we relate them to nature there, to get them to have a more empathetic attitude towards nature, which is definitely our life support system. In fact, the Commissioner for Environment, we told his people the other day that we're going to change the name of your ministry. It's no longer Ministry of Environment. It's the Ministry of Life Support System. They like that one.
Because we need, exactly, because after all, we have to exist on planet Earth. Well, Sultan Jabbar, that I spoke about, that's heading up this particular conference, he has urged countries to promise to make deeper cuts to their emissions and work together to triple renewable power and double energy efficiency. So he's calling on research here. If you're going to be doubling energy efficiency, I spoke about the genius that we have, Elon Musk, who is doing weird things, that nobody else has been able to do. Suddenly his cars are now actually outpacing fossil fuel cars. Purely on electric. You probably know about his Tesla company and his Tesla cars, and even though they are nowhere near sort of affordable to everybody, but at least he's pointing the way that there's nothing a fossil car can do with emissions that an electric car cannot do better without emissions. But I suppose for the moment that's going to be limited to, in terms of order. If we're in the third world here, I suppose the first world are the people that are going to be enjoying all of that because it has a whole infrastructure, which we are still worrying about gas infrastructure here to be able to fuel our cars at these gas points that are going to be erected. In other countries, they've gone beyond that. They're actually thinking now of having these points where you can actually charge up your car and then continue for another 300 kilometers, that kind of a thing. So this whole this matter about renewable power and double the energy efficiency, that seems to be calling on research. I don't know how, if you have any knowledge of what's going on locally, when I say locally, perhaps on the African planet, about research into this, research into doubling the efficiency, possibly, or at least increasing the efficiency of the electric power that we are using, that we do have.
Oh yes, I trust my people. Nigerians, we're so blessed. We're blessed under the ground, under our soil. The blessings are just there. Multiple type of minerals, you name it, it's all there. But also between the ears, there's some kind of, I don't know, innovativeness about Nigeria. Maybe it's the food, maybe it's the tropical climate, I don't know. But we're definitely can be sure that just give a little bit of encouragement in the education institutions. Let the money flow in there, some of the research departments. You'll see Nigerian young people coming up with some great and wonderful ideas. And believe you me, the ideas are coming up. And the reality is that very soon, you'll be able to have efficient enough solar panel that will be on the roof of your car and on the bonnet of the car and the boot of the car, and also windows that are transparent but are producing electricity that you hardly need to give the car recharging. That's what's going on. The research is now moving full steam ahead. And innovative ideas are just coming from all over the place very, very soon. And as soon as the demand increases, definitely the prices will drop dramatically. Because even to make those engines, it's actually a bit cheaper than the internal combustion engine, which requires so much type of powerful, strong, resistant metals and so on in there. You know, one of the most expensive parts is the battery system, and that's getting cheaper now because they're using minerals that are more easily available, like the lithium and so on, and also the winding of the coils. So yeah, I believe that if we allow and if we encourage the research, we'll definitely be coming up with some very, very innovative things. And you know, as Mr. President has now been pushing in that direction, it's very encouraging. But you know what was the most encouraging thing? Just I brought a little bit, was one of the first people that King Charles paid host to was our president. And that King Charles, he has been environmentalist almost all his life, for decades, and in fact, before, 40, 50 years ago, they used to abuse him. You know, the English can be a bit funny. They say, oh, our king he's a bloody tree hugger. He's hugging trees, you know. And now they know the importance of trees. So he's very, very, very strong on environmental issues. And the fact that he hosted our president and they met each other and had some good discussion, that's very, very encouraging as well. So all we need to do is just fire up the young people and give them some support in their institutions, and you can be sure that Nigeria too will come up with some very innovative solutions for clean, free energy. So that's a bit of a challenge, because if it's coming free, then there's some people that won't be making the big money that they've been making because they're relying on them for their energy. Now is the sun, or maybe they'll try to find a way to tax the sunlight.
Good morning, Mr. George, and I thank you for holding on. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Uncle Yori, and good morning to your guest.
Yes.
Uncle Yori, it's unfortunate we don't have opposition in our country, Nigeria. We only have embittered election losers who cannot look beyond their anger. That same conference that is going on, the president on the sidelines signed a contract with the German chancellor that will help us to get more than 20,000 megawatts of electricity in the next 2 years. They didn't see that one. It is the number of delegates that they are talking about. And is it the government that is sponsoring everybody? Do they expect the government to pay Tony Elumelu's air tickets to Dubai? There are so many Nigerians living there, in Dubai there, who are interested in environment that concerns their business. Even Nigerians that are home, people like Mr. Majekodunmi, for example, activists and people who are concerned about the environment as it affects their business and life. They are in that conference. It's not the government that is saying for everybody. They don't know, they are not even interested in that. They are just looking for what to say that can bring down the government or somebody they do not like.
Yeah.
Uncle Yori, please don't allow these embittered people to change the narratives of that conference. The goodness in it is that this same conference, the president has been there pushing for the over $100 billion that Western countries have been promising that they have not received to affected countries. In this same conference, they are not seeing all that once. Mr. Majekodunmi will agree with me that this is what it is all about, not about how many people. People have been saying you have 54 ministers, but have they ever imagined the enormity of work that this president has come out to do? Have they studied his agenda? Have they studied what is the reforms that he's putting in place? Is he not going to use human beings for it? They should go and look for something else to say. Good morning.
Good morning, and thank you very much for calling in, Mr. George. It's an important point that you make, because people just, grabbed onto, and because those ones wanted to be transparent, they have this site where you can see everybody who has registered from wherever, and that's how people were able to link up with Nigeria, the same number as a country like China that has its populations in, is it billions now? But as it has been pointed out there are many people there that could not have been sponsored by government. Just to take it from George there, will Tony Elumelu wait for the government to come and give him an air ticket to be there? Everybody, and there were many, many people in that place. NGOs, the interest groups, all sorts of people, and the point has been made, as Mr. George came and underlined, that Nigeria is not sponsoring that. What was that figure? I think the figure escapes me now, but it was in the region of 1,142 or something like that. And yes, some opposition figures have grabbed hold of that figure. But as we said at the beginning, it has been explained this morning that it's not. Some people even might have registered that would not even be there. Not that I know why that would be the case, but we are told that such indeed is the case. The important thing I think that Mr. George wanted to bring out is that people are just so quick to knock anything that this government does, and they found another opportunity in this matching the number of delegates from China. But we've been speaking about how important it is to Nigeria, and Nigeria is a person of the global community, and there will be attempts to strike some other understandings on the sidelines of this. Although I quickly say that when it was pointed out in relation to the Sultan, heading up, the Sultan who is in charge of their oil company, state oil company, heading this up, and people thought that was a bit strange. That he probably was going to be using that to be doing the very kind of thing Mr. George spoke about. He denied it. He said, on the contrary, that it's important that this is a first in the 3 decades or so that this conference has been in existence. This is the first time that we've had an insider from the quote-unquote culprit to be able to see how we can work at this from within. And I think that's a very important aspect, as you have said, Mr. Majekodunmi.
Yeah, absolutely. And what the caller also alluded to, the fact that Mr. President is also trying to ensure that the money, because these people, they've been promising funds for countries like Nigeria for quite some time, adaptation and mitigation type of funds. But the money hasn't really been forthcoming. And it needs to. We need that money. Our coastal erosion, Nigeria has been hit hard with this global warming. It's hit very hard. Our coastal erosion is terrible, all the way past Ondo, all the way down the coast. Terrible, and it's going to get worse. And places like Lagos are extremely vulnerable. It's going to take a lot of money to put the kind of rock groins and all the protective barriers and so on to ensure that we don't get inundated. That's it. Lekki doesn't get washed away. Banana Island will turn to Water Island. God forbid, not to mention desert encroachment and so on. So yeah, it's good that we're pushing to get the funds, and I feel a bit more confident that the funds will come through. There was a lot of question of, okay, if the funds come through, how will they be deployed? because in the past they've seen some scenarios which have not been too palatable at all. But now there are some NGOs on the Nigerian Climate Change Committee who will also be able to add some confidence to people who are supposed to give the money. They will be monitoring bodies. And also, I think the conscience of the people who will be making the decisions now, I think their conscience must be getting pricked. You know, just as we said, even the man who is in charge of the COP, his own conscience, because we all have children, and we're playing with the life support system, this fantastic miracle of creation that God Almighty has bestowed upon us. You know, and it's in the scripture, it's very clear, replenish the earth, we are caliphs, we are caretakers. Do what you're supposed to do to look after this planet for your children's sake, you know. So I think their conscience also will be pricked, and the right things will come out of this conference, and the money will be deployed to ensure that we look after Mother Nature, that we don't slap our mama. You know, slap us.
Indeed. Well, thank you then. So, as I was saying, I was casting for that figure at that time. My producers are giving it to me. It's 1,411. 1,411. The same number as the country China. And so the opposition, well, critics, let me not just say opposition alone. Critics, you know, have said that what was Nigeria trying to prove? Why will China have 1,411 and then Nigeria will have 1,411? But a statement has come out of the presidency that it's important to state that the delegates from all countries, whether from government, private sector, media, civil society groups, they all attend COP summits and conferences as parties, and the number of attendees are registered against their countries of origin. And it is not necessarily the case that they are sponsored by government, or that indeed everybody who has registered is actually physically present, even though the website might be showing that alongside China, we also have 1,411 delegates attending. Okay, we'll take a quick break now. Please stay with us, Mr. Majekodunmi. We'll be right back to continue this conversation.
Every major news story is with many perspectives and layered with different levels of impact.
Hello. What time did this happen? We will be right there.
At TVC News, we follow the big and major news, gathering the facts, witnessing the outcome.
I am here live at the aftermath of the approval of the new national minimum wage.
We are TV Station of the Year, not just for breaking news, but for being first, fair and accurate. TVC News, first with breaking news.
Every week,
President Bola Tinubu says Nigeria is committed to maintain emission reduction by at least 30% in the current year. Methane is a hydrocarbon that is a primary component of natural gas as well as greenhouse gas, and its presence in the atmosphere affects the Earth's temperature and the climate. Speaking at a forum on methane and other non-CO2 emissions reduction, President Tinubu said Nigeria, as signatory to the COP28 Global Decarbonization Accelerator and having signed off as a member of the UN Global Compact, is working to achieve the aims of the summit. The president also emphasized that the country has taken critical steps to reduce methane emissions by ensuring flare elimination and focusing on gas as replacement. President Tinubu assured the gathering that Nigeria would continue to be partner in progress. The Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Wale Edun, and the Executive Chairman of the Federal Inland Revenue Service, Zach Adedeji, also spoke.
Be partner in progress to achieve
renewables. We are committed to energy mix. We are providing cooking gas for a large population. We will continue to do that. We've signed off on reduction of methane. We will leverage on new technology.
The growth that we are looking for is actually going to be green growth. It's going to be in the direction of energy efficient, climate friendly transactions that the growth is going to come. So it's not environment or growth, it's going to be environment and growth.
This committee is dedicated to steering the Nigeria Carbon Market Allocation Plan, a strategic initiative that underscores our determination to harness Nigeria's vast carbon potential through the implementation of efficient policies and framework.
Okay, then. Welcome back to the second half, which we preceded with that report that went out earlier. And also, our thanks to Mr. Joshua, who has called in from Irewolide. Good morning to you, sir. Thank you for holding on.
Okay, good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning to your guest.
Yes.
I so much appreciate you and all the efforts you have been making at pushing the preservation of the environment. I mean, for the safety of our lives. He said the planet Earth is our main life support system. And I wish the world would just take that one line and we all sing it as national anthem every day. You know, we humans, we promoted ourselves into an utopia that is leading us to our own extinction. We think that we are not a species. So we call ourselves spirit, we call ourselves ghosts. Meanwhile, we are members of the planet Earth. So the earlier we wake up to realize that if the Earth goes up in flames, we are all burned, the better it is for us. So there's nothing more that one can say than to say preserve the Earth because it's our major source of life, support, and even existence as human beings. I want to appeal to you, Uncle Yori, on these two things. One, do we still have a Minister of Information? I think there's an information gap in Nigeria. Then secondly, the low-hanging fruit is this renewable energy. I think it's a quick win for this government. I'm surprised that, okay, while the Ikeja Electric and all that can take a lot of time to put resources together. I mean, what resources are we putting together to tap the energy of the sun? What are we putting together? So any reasonable government understands, if you are in Africa, that your first source of power for your continent is the natural environment that you have. I don't know why we are still dilly-dallying on that. I mean, what conference do you want to hold to deploy, renewable energy in Africa? What conference do you want to hold for me to have affordable inverter in my home, to power my home? What conference? So it's important that we begin to just grab that quick opportunity to make things happen for people so that we can make progress very fast. Thank you, sir. Thank
you very much for calling in, Mr. Joshua from Irewolide, and indeed for holding on. In case you've just joined us, our guest is Mr. Desmond Majekodunmi. He's an environmentalist and is chairman of the Lekki State Urban Forest and Animal Shelter Initiative. And so he's very interested, very keenly interested in all things preserving the health of Mother Earth, planet Earth, as we were talking about, and that's part of a state urban forest and animal shelter initiative. The president was saying in there that, look, there are alternative fuels that we're going to be pressing our head on. But what that viewer brought in there, what are your thoughts on that? That, look, the low-hanging fruits, as he put it, inverters and batteries nowadays, you know, look, even if it can't do all of your needs, there's a significant part of those needs that it can indeed achieve. And he was wondering if we have paid as much attention as we can to that particular opportunity by bringing down the cost of these things. If your power delivery, power holding company is not able to give you power for 12 hours, if 2 out of those hours you can actually take care of yourself because of solar energy, it's a little bit, just a little drop in the bucket, but it adds up. What are your thoughts on his accusation that perhaps we're being a bit lax by not concentrating as well on these aspects?
Yeah, definitely. And that caller had some very pertinent points to say. I love the way his attitude towards nature, the ultimate mother. we have to take care of her. She's our life support. No, I see a very bright light coming at the end of the tunnel, and especially that Mr. President is insisting that certain things must be done, like even the stopping the gas flaring. If anybody can do it, he can do it. He has the tenacity, he has all the abilities to do that. He's he can be tough and rough when necessary, because we've been promising to do this for a long, long time. And it hasn't been done, because the corporates will prefer just to pay the small penalty and continue. No. This thing has to be stopped. And then we tap the gas and use the natural gas and, for deploying energy systems for us. So I think there's a good possibility that we're on the right track now. And it's very, very, very encouraging. But we have to understand that this is an emergency. I know it's difficult. You woke up this morning, the sun is shining, everything is going fine. What are they talking about emergency? It is. The people who are saying this, they know what they're saying. They have all the technology to understand it. That's why they're panicking. Even Secretary General of the United Nations is saying that we're heading in a bus, heading towards climate here, and our foot is still on the accelerator, and we haven't even reduced. So it's very, very encouraging. That can you imagine you're inside the Korope with your family members, and then you're heading towards a place where the bridge has collapsed, and the driver is still pressing the accelerator. But there's hope.
Mr. Majekodunmi, to bring this a bit more in focus to a lot of viewers that will just be ordinary viewers, that is to say ordinary citizens, could you explain a wee bit about the ozone layer and its depletion that our current habits are said to be accelerating, and that we need to, after all, in the first instance, I understand that along with other countries in the world, Nigeria, has banned certain kind of refrigerators because it was injurious to the atmosphere. So let me listen. Let me listen. Do I have a caller? Okay, okay, I do have a caller, but I want to come back to you, and maybe you give us a very simplistic explanation of this ozone layer and how human activity is depleting it, and how that is not helpful to the health of Mother Earth. But in the meantime, let me not delay Reverend Dominic, who has actually come into our switchboard. Good morning to you, Reverend Dominic.
Good morning, Chief Yori. Good morning to Dr. Desmond.
Yes.
It seems that we don't even have enough delegates in Dubai, because I wonder if Dr. Desmond is in Nigeria. I have watched him campaign for environment in Nigeria for over 20 years. And I don't know whether he's talking from Dubai or he's talking from Nigeria.
And he's talking from his home in Lekki.
Okay. That means we don't have enough delegates in Dubai. Yori, I'm not interested whether we have 1 million delegates in Dubai or not, just like George has said. What I'm interested in, even though we have 1 million delegates, are they active, or do we have inactive delegates? If we take 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, it depends on the activity of those delegates. But if we take people who go for Jamboree of ESA code, I'm against it. And I want to beg my brother, my friend George, we have a big nation, which we have one of the best places in Nigeria taking care of it. assured Tinubu, the best president I ever think that will govern this nation. It will be so terrible if we don't have opposition. It will be so terrible if we don't have somebody who will criticize the government. So the election is over. We have the victor and the vanquished. We have come together to govern Nigeria. What I'm saying now is the best of Nigeria. What George is saying is best of Nigeria. Whoever criticizes is best of Nigeria. We should look at people who lose election. We should talk about Nigerians who want the best of Nigeria. Thank you. God bless you, sir.
Thank you very much for calling in, Reverend Dominic. I guess you're going back to that whole point about explaining the number. Nigeria having 1,411 delegates, same number as China, and that has been explained. That Nigeria is not paying for all of those people, and there's so many interest groups that are there. But coming back to you, sir, Mr. Majekodunmi, would you like to explain it in a very simplistic way, how our activity is depleting the ozone layer, and that this in itself is allowing injurious rays to come through to us on planet Earth?
Yes, it's a very, very, very important thing. But just to quickly respond to Reverend.
Yes, please.
We have representatives there, the Nigerian Conservation Foundation. I'm a council member, and we're well represented there with our DG, who is a staunch environmentalist, and they're really pushing for it. And by the way, we paid for ourselves. No government.
Okay, you sponsored yourself. This exemplifies the point that is being made by the presidency, that we are not sponsoring all of those peoples.
We Anthony Elumelu, I think he also sponsored himself. But to get back to your point, it's the ozone. You see, that's why when we refer to this planet Earth and her systems, we call it the miracle of creation. The reality is that when you look up in the sky, the reason why the sky is blue is because of a certain gas that's there. If you go beyond our atmosphere, which is only a few kilometers thick, it's like paper thin compared to the width of the Earth. If you go beyond that, the sky is black. It's blue because of the H2O, that's the water vapor gas. And when the sun rays go through it, it brings out the blue light in it. And there's other gases there. As you said, the ozone is there. And ozone is an incredible gas because it filters out the ultraviolet ray. You know, the sun gives different types of rays, different types of frequencies. Some of them are the light frequency. Some of them are the heat frequency, infrared. Some of them are the ultraviolet frequency, which is a very high frequency, which is what the plants use to help them with their photosynthesis. And these ultraviolet rays, they can be very harmful if too many of them come through. So God Almighty, in His infinite wisdom, has created a system that will filter out a lot of these rays. But unfortunately, in our refrigeration systems in days gone by, we were using some kind of substance, a kind of gas in that fridge that was affecting this ozone layer, and it was depleting it, so that these ultraviolets would have been coming through more, and they would have caused terrible cancer in people's skin. So we cut it out. The world got together and said, no, we have to stop this. See? So we can't do it. You see, and the silver lining on this very dark cloud is that the whole of humanity is in peril. Just like the whole of Nigeria is in danger. The climate change isn't asking, okay, what's your nationality? Are you Yoruba, Egba Yoruba, or Ondo Yoruba, or Ibadan Yoruba? Are you Kanuri? Are you Igbo? Are you whatever? No, we're all one people on Earth with slight little differences, with little variations, They say variety is the spice of life. It's like, can you cook jollof rice? It's only oil and rice, finished. No, you have to put spices.
So it's a global issue. It affects everyone.
Exactly. And in order to solve it, we all have to come together as one body, as one human body, and start living a far more caring life. A lot of it has been driven by, too much profit. That's why I'm so glad that Mr. President wants to stop the gas flaring, because it's killing people, it's making people sick. It has to stop, no matter the money that you're making, because you're not utilizing the gas more effectively and more efficiently. So yes, we're very, very optimistic, my brother, very optimistic.
Indeed.
That we're going to now see some positive changes. Yeah.
And I think it was Reverend Dominic who called in that asked the sort of rhetorical question about whether I'm not sure if it was him or someone else, about, in short, the point he was making is that we don't have as much information as he feels could be helpful. Because truly, you just said it's a global problem. Certainly, it's a totally national problem as far as we Nigerians are concerned. And the more we know about it, the better. And that knowledge might be lacking on what our own little 2 bits, as they say, our own little 2 cents, we could add to it. After all, when it comes to the matter of not wasting water, for instance, conserving water, people not just using water anyhow as if it's a limitless resource, that kind of attitude can also be brought, I would imagine, onto matters that safeguard the health of the planet. No matter how small it is, there are those who say that this little tiny inconsequential bit that you are doing, by the time the other guy is doing the same thing, so that we don't, you know, if we can take, you spoke about the generator, the portable generating sets. If we can take, for instance, if we can take 50,000 of those things out of commission, for instance, it will make, it's not going to solve all of the problems, but it definitely will make a difference. And I think it was in that context that Reverend Dominic was saying that the people, the ordinary people, need to know a lot more about this subject matter than currently.
Exactly. More awareness, definitely. I mean, everybody has a bit to play. We all have a role to play, you know. And even, you know, we should bring the green back as well. That helps tremendously. We should ensure that we put more trees. The schools should have trees. The forest should be protected. If you don't have space in your house for a tree, at least you can have what we call jam jar garden. You just have a small bottle. I mean, bring the green back into Nigeria now.
We've run out of time now, Mr. Majekodunmi. But as always, it's a delight to speak with you on these fundamental and, quite frankly, life-saving issues that we discuss every time you come on, being an environmentalist and chair of the Lekki State Urban Forest and Animal Shelter Initiative. We thank you for your service, and also thank you for making the time for us this morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So that's our program today then. Please join us tomorrow for a fresh edition. I am Yori Folari. Bye-bye for now.
The following is a paid presentation by ShopX TV. Do you struggle with having an active and healthy lifestyle due to your busy schedule? Do you find it's difficult to make it to the gym? You want to improve your overall health, but don't know where and how to start? Medical experts agree that walking, running, and jogging are amongst the best ways to stay fit.